Hello, listener. This is DynoWright. Today, we present our original two-part episode on Do the Right Thing, the 1989 classic Spike Lee film. As you should well know, Fight the Power by Public Enemy features prominently in the film. And if you're listening to this or watching this in mid-April of 2024, you should know that Chuck D from Public Enemy will be in conversation with our man DJ R18, Andrew McIntosh, on April 16th at Northampton Community College. Information on that event is at northampton.edu. Your HHMCs JB, BooGie, and me, DynoWright, will be there. So come hang with us. Part 2 follows immediately after Part 1 of this episode. Thanks for listening. Welcome to Hip Hop Movie Club, where three old heads put their old heads together to vibe on some of the most memorable or forgettable hip-hop themed movies of all time. And here's HHMC with your HHMCs, BooGie, JB, and DynoWright. Season 3, Episode 1, Do the Right Thing, Part 1. We packed so much into this discussion that Part 2 will be out next week. Written, directed, and produced by Spike Lee. Released in 1989 and featuring a cavalcade of stars and up-and-comers who became superstars. In this episode, we'll answer the question, is this movie as vital and important as ever?
Do the Right Thing depicts 24 hours of the hottest day of the year in the Bedford-Stuyvesant section, Brooklyn. It's a historically black section of the borough with exceptions such as the Korean convenience store and Sal's Pizzeria, which has been situated there for the past 25 years. Sal's Pizzeria is the epicenter of rising racial tensions between the young black men in Bed-Stuy and Sal and his sons, Vito and Pino. While Vito is more open-minded, Pino hates interacting with the neighborhood residents primarily based on their skin color and cultural norms. Mookie is a black pizza delivery man working for Sal for a few years and dealing with the racial epithets and trying to find a balance between earning a living, his hostile work environment, maintaining his relationship with his girlfriend and son, and dealing with his friends who have far less patience for racism. Underlying racial tensions come to a head on this sweltering day with tragic results. So, Boogie, you want to kick us off on your view of Do the Right Thing?
Yeah. So Do the Right Thing is a classic Spike Lee movie. It's one of those movies that's meant to facilitate discussion. It talks on a lot of poignant topics that still exist to this day. So that's one of the things that I always appreciated about Spike. He was never afraid to, he's never afraid to put his views out on film. But I saw this movie for the first time in middle school. You know, one of our teachers got special permission to show it to us, and it facilitated some discussion. It got us thinking, and it touched on a lot of things that we saw in our neighborhood because it pretty much mirrored the Bed-Stuy neighborhood and Do the Right Thing. But the first thing that really popped out for me was the intro. My favorite song from my favorite hip hop group of all time, Fight the Power, like instant classic. You got introduced to Rosie Perez as, dancing through the intro, just kind of getting you ready for what was to come. And every time I see that intro, it just gives me chills because it's such a great call to basically fight the power, as the chorus says. I mean, we got some classic interactions between the late Ossie Davis and Ruby Dee. The chemistry between them is undeniable, of course, but it spills over really well into the movie as they play off of one another. One of my favorite actors of all time is actually in Do the Right Thing. Giancarlo Esposito, who plays Bugging Out. This guy is so versatile. He plays in a lot of shows and movies, and any role that I see him in, he steals the show. He's a great, phenomenal actor. And then there's another list of up-and-comers and people that, if you see them now, they're like big name A-listers. So, I mean, I think the movie is a really good one by Spike Lee. Like I said, and it's very enjoyable for me because it facilitates discussion. Anyone who watches the movie definitely has to get something out of it. You can't watch the movie and walk away from it not feeling anything. You're going to feel something. And I think that's what I probably appreciate the most about it. It makes you think.
Yeah, good analysis there. It makes your blood boil because of all the racism that's depicted. It's sickening because we all trying to get along. We're all trying to get along in society, and you see just hatred that's deep seated. Just to piggyback off of a couple of your comments, "Fight the Power" was amazing. I love that song. It is played throughout with Radio Raheem. That's the only song he really plays on his boombox. I was watching some of the bonus features with this, and Chuck D was contacted by Spike Lee to create an anthem for this movie. So he knew about the script. He knew what it was all about. And Chuck D was like, all right, you need an anthem. And he put together a few verses. And I think Spike Lee was the first cut wasn't good. He sent it back, and it wasn't even called "Fight the Power." And what he did eventually get was what you hear in the movie. And it's funny, you never hear the full song because it wasn't even complete at that time. So they put snippets of the song in there, and it was super powerful. And then Chuck D and the rest of Public Enemy completed that song. Amazing anthem. Introduction of Rosie Perez. I believe it was Martin Lawrence's first movie as well.
Yeah.
We'll get to a lot of the other actors and actresses, but Sam Jackson, before he became Samuel L. Jackson as Senor Love Daddy, the radio DJ, was awesome. He was like the objective observer. He's a DJ talking to the town, seeing everything that goes on. And he was a cool character, as he always is. And then there's so many other great characters in here. One other thing, you mentioned Ossie Davis and Ruby Dee, who had been married in real life. The funny thing with that is Ossie plays this character called the mayor. Bit of a town drunk, but he's wise. He has a scene where he saves a boy from getting hit by a car. And Ossie Davis mentioned in one of the interviews was that the relationship he had with Ruby Dee, who plays mother's sister, who watches over the neighborhood, it paralleled almost the relationship in real life. Not that he was a town drunk, but he said that she looked down on him a little bit early on in the relationship. Like she didn't really have trust in him and see his virtue. And then she kind of grew to love him. So I thought that was really a nice touch that Spike had bringing them into the film together.
Yeah, very nice.
Yeah. DynoWright, what are your initial impressions?
I had never seen this before, which is crazy to think all these years later I hadn't seen it, but it really is fresh and relevant now. And I think important for me to see a movie like this. But the beginning, when it's more of a feel-good kind of comedy, it's really funny. There's a Jerry curl alert that your daddy loved to talk about. Someone was cleaner than the Board of Health. Like, this is really funny stuff. And I'm so glad I got to see this. And we love Robin Harris. If you've listened to any of our episodes,
yes,
you'll see that he said some great lines. If Tyson dreams of whooping my ass, you better wake up and apologize. You're 30 cents away from having a quarter. You eat the holes out of donuts. Like, man, if he had lived, he would have been a megastar.
Absolutely.
It was kind of also funny to see that his name in the movie, I don't know if I should even repeat it, but his name in the movie is so bad. It's so raunchy.
Yeah, Slick Dick Willie. I mean, there's people.
Sweet Dick Willie.
Slick Dick Willie.
There's two phallic references in this name. Not just one, but two.
Oh, man. His dialogue is one of the three cornermen, as they call it.
Yeah.
Coconut Sid and ML. Those guys are great. I mean, I could listen to an entire, it's almost like barbershop routine.
Yes.
They're sitting on the corner and they're just shooting the breeze and talking about pertinent topics though. But it's like, kind of like, oh man. And they're jealous of the Korean convenience store. It's like, oh, these people just got off the boat and they have a store within the past year. And they're going back and forth saying it's not fair, but it's because we're black. And Robin Harris' character is like, knock it the heck off. You always say you have these big dreams. Yeah. Where's your, go get a job, do this. I can give you money. And he's like, it's Miller time. I'm out of here. Right. He was always kind of level setting these guys from just complaining about their lot in life.
But it's so funny because even like in that conversation, there's humor to those conversations, but there's also some truth to it as well. Mm-hmm. As, a lot of documentation is becoming public now, we're realizing that there actually was some redlining that did occur in African-American communities, and also where banks made it hard or, they're denied to get loans or made it impossible or hard to get those loans to open businesses in neighborhoods. Whereas even though they're considered an immigrant coming from another country, you do have the Chinese and the Koreans that will come over and they're able to get those businesses. Like I said, I've seen it in my own neighborhood. There's been a couple of shops and stores that have opened in the neighborhood, whereas people that live there aren't able to, or if they do get one, it doesn't stay open that long. So, I mean, there's Spike taking a scene, put some humor to it, but put a little bit of truth in there as well.
Yeah, I think this movie was a great mix of real hardcore, real talk, racism, but again, there was definitely some comedic aspects of it. I mean, I like the dialogue. I'm a huge sports fan, so I even like I love that Spike Lee's wearing the Jackie Robinson jersey, which is also symbolic, breaking the color barrier in baseball. But there's also the commentary where they're going back and forth. Who's the better pitcher, Doc Gooden or Roger Clemens? And that was a huge debate in the mid 80s and late 80s.
Yeah.
There was just some really good dialogue, and the stuff about Mike Tyson that you mentioned, DynoWright, and the stuff that was great. And then they're like, F Mike Tyson. But the whole cinematography was great too. The close-ups, the slow motion scene when you have the white cops roll up, and it's like, what a waste. It was so powerful. Again, it's the hottest day of the year. You can almost feel the heat through the screen. You see the folks sweating. You see the almost like red hues. Now watch
intentionally, very intentional.
Intentionally, right? The red hues to make it feel that warmth. And I was watching the extra scenes. They filmed this over like a 10-week period right there in Bed-Stuy, which is great that they filmed it right there. It wouldn't have come off as authentic if it was filmed like on a Hollywood set.
Right.
There was like a 1 week where they said that rained straight. It rained the entire week, but they had to stay on schedule. So even though it was raining, they did the lighting in such a way that it looked bright and sunny. So they had to do some extra special effects there. So the way that was shot, close-ups, you get that feeling. You see Rosie Perez, dunking her head in the water to cool off. Even the romantic ice cube scene,
Right.
things like that. I mean, it's just like you could feel that the heat, and again that added to the racial tensions that we see throughout the film.
Yeah. Yeah. That cinematography, like you said, the cinematography was spot on. I mean, Spike is a master of his craft. And when he shoots the way he has the movie shot, those effects that he has on his film, it just gives you a feeling of actually being there, and it kind of enhances a lot of the dialogue, or whatever's happening. It just kind of pulls it out a little bit more. I definitely appreciate his movies, though.
Yeah, shout out to Ernest Dickerson. Eric Dickerson. Not Eric Dickerson. Shout out to Ernest Dickerson, the director of photography.
Yeah.
And the character, you get to meet a lot of different characters, like Bugging Out. Obviously, he's got a vendetta. He's really dead set that Sal should have photos of Black people on his quote unquote wall of fame, and they're all just Italian Americans. And that's one thing. There's, again, a lot of different cultural groups in there. There's the Korean store owners, and a lot of people are just nasty to them. Maybe it's out of jealousy, it's out of hatred. Then there's the Latino group, and then there was the scene where there's the boombox, Radio Raheem, his boombox, and almost like the salsa music, and they're like battling back and forth. So it shows the whole different mix, and everybody's got their own viewpoint and prejudices. And again, on the hottest day of the year, it all bubbles up at the end. So I wanted to kind of like maybe debate a couple topics here. Does Bugging Out have an actual point in that Sal should have photos of Black people on the wall in his pizzeria? What do you guys think? Who wants to jump in there?
Yeah, I think I see both sides of it. I think that in a sense, Bugging Out does have a point. Sal's famous pizzeria is in the middle of Bed-Stuy. The people that frequent his pizzeria shop are, Black people. So, I mean, I kind of see where Bugging Out is coming from. Like, hey, you're making money off of us. Why can't we have some people that look like us up on the wall? But on the flip side of it, I also see Sal's point. You know, it's his establishment. You know, he's worked hard to, as he said, he built it with his hands from the ground up. You know, so he's proud of, you know, what he's established, and he wants to honor, you know, the people that have come before him, or the people that he, you know, he's entertained by or look up to. So, I mean, it's his wall and his building. I think, you know, at the same time, he should have a say on who goes on his wall. So, I mean, I think it's bugging out was a little more, it was a very radical in his approach. But on the flip side, like, you know, Sal was, he was a little irritable and a little agitated as well. So it's kind of one of those things, you know, I see both sides of it.
DynoWright, what do you think?
Well, I get Sal's point and I get Bugging Out's point, but Bugging Out could just go to a different pizza place. I don't know. I mean, Bed-Stuy's not that small. There's other pizza places, aren't there? But like 51% with Sal, like, it's his pizza place. He can do whatever he wants with it, and
Right.
you can go somewhere else. I mean, maybe the pizza isn't as good somewhere else, which is the problem for Bugging Out. But probably the best business sense was for Sal to put some pictures of Black people on there, because it makes your customers happy. Then, you know, you'll get more money and more business out of it.
I'm with you guys. Sal's not obligated to put any pictures he doesn't want to on the wall. It's his restaurant. It's a private business. Well, he's out in the public, but it's not like a publicly stockholder shares, you know, so he owns the business. He can do what he wants to do. However, like you said, it's its approach. It's the whole approach. Bugging Out was a little bit too demanding, but then again, there's no reason for Sal to shout at him, call him a troublemaker, come out with a baseball bat. It's like, oh, wait a second, all right, now you're escalating it, right? It's becoming incendiary right now, because now you're being offended that he's even asking that, and then you're bringing a baseball bat. So they both were in the wrong. I mean, I try to put myself in Sal's shoes if I had a specific restaurant of an ethnicity, and if someone asked that, I would try to diffuse the situation and just say, even if you're somewhat sugarcoating, like, I'll take that into consideration, you know, something like that. Not be like, you troublemaker, you start cussing and bring out a baseball bat. It's like, I understand your point, but it's not going to happen. Or I'll think about it, even if you want. You know, there's definitely other ways to handle that.
Yeah, like he probably could have said, hey, you know, all right, how about you give me 5 people who you think might be up there, and then I'll think about putting them up, something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a solution, not just
throwing
grenades.
Right.
How about put Mookie's picture up there as an employee of the month? How about that? Right.
Hey.
I think Sal would be opposed to that.
You know what's ironic is Giancarlo Esposito, who plays the role of Bugging Out. He's half Black, half Italian. I mean,
this is pretty funny.
It's pretty funny that he's causing the big divide, and he actually has the heritage of both. He actually mentioned in one interview I saw, he didn't really fit in real life. He didn't really fit in with the Italian crowd because they didn't really look at them. But again, he didn't fit in with the Black crowd because his name is Giancarlo Esposito. Right. He said he actually got along with a lot of Jewish folks that were like his best friends. It's just ironic. But he said that in an interview that I saw. So, and just to talk about Giancarlo, like you said, versatile roles. He played Gus in Breaking Bad, that people may know him from, and in Mandalorian, he's played a big role in The Mandalorian, I believe, which is super popular. Mandalorian, yeah, and tons of movies. So he's super talented.
I watched him mostly in Homicide. Those 2 years he was on Homicide, Life on the Street.
Nice. Another debate topic I want to bring up is Sal, right? Would you consider Sal a racist? Yes or no, and why? What do you think, Boogie?
Yeah, I would consider him racist, but I wouldn't consider him like overtly racist. I think what might make Sal racist is not necessarily him as a person, but just the indoctrination of what he's been taught or how he's been raised. but he actually was very toned down. Like he spoke to some people with respect, and even when the mayor came in and asked if he needed some work done, he gave him a broom and gave him some pay, let him go outside and sweep the front of the store. Jade would come by and he would have lengthy conversations with her, even to a certain extent with Mookie. Like he wasn't overtly racist towards Mookie. That was just a manager-employee dynamics between the two of them. Like he didn't, say much about Mookie that could be considered, racially offensive. It was more so like, hey, do your job, or are you being late? Are you hanging out? Are you playing around? Like most managers would ask their employees stuff like that if they were gone for a while and came back, or they had a tendency to wander off, or things like that. So I don't think he was overtly racist, but I think towards the end, when the bugging out and Radio Raheem situation escalated, now was that word thrown out in anger, or was that word thrown out because that's how he always felt about them? You don't really know. So it's one of those situations.
What do you think, DynoWright?
So
was Sal racist?
Yes, but the thing that helped me try to think through this, I don't know if you've read How to Be an Anti-Racist by Ibram X. Kendi. So I'm oversimplifying it, but it basically says either you're racist or anti-racist, moment to moment, action to action. And so if you're not actually doing something anti-racist, then you're being racist. So his definition of racism is one, either actively confronting racial inequality or allowing it to exist by action or inaction. So when Sal gives a broom to the mayor and some money to sweep up the front, he's being anti-racist. But when bugging out is getting in his face and then Sal's using the N-word, now he's being racist. And so it's useful for me to have this lens to answer this question about whether Sal's a racist. And so the short answer is yes, but he's pushed towards it more at the end when the aggravation continues and he does racist things.
That's a good viewpoint. For me, Sal definitely is a racist. And you could tell by some of the language he uses. Again, he may not be quite as overt. I mean, in the beginning of the movies, I'm going to hurt somebody today. All right. Okay. Wait a second. Why are you going to hurt someone, right? You're already having a bad day. Also, and I saw Spike Lee actually help me kind of decipher this a little bit further when he was asked a question like this. He said, these people grew up on my pizza shop. It's a very degrading term just to kind of classify someone as, these people, like almost like they're lower class because they're black.
Other, yeah.
Other, right. These people. And also, Pino, his one son, played by John Turturro, super racist, using the N-word. He's like, this is like Planet of the Apes. This is ridiculous. I hate this, blah, blah, blah. He's always used the N-word. He's nasty to Mookie. Again, that doesn't come out of thin air. It's most likely ingrained by his father. Even though his brother Vito, much more open-minded, was cool with Mookie. I don't think he uttered a racist remark. He was actually trying to to get Pino to see the light that we should all be equal. But yeah, no, I think Sal, played by Danny Aiello, was definitely racist. And again, it comes out like if it's like you said, DynoWright, it's like you're either racist or anti-racist. Right. And if something escalates and then it comes out, it's like, all right, this was in there. This was DC. You may have tried to bottle up a little bit, but that's the way you are. So I mean that's my thought on it. What do we think of Radio Raheem's character? So if you guys all recall the movie, listeners here, I mean, he's this big hulking guy, and primarily he's just holding his boombox, blasting Public Enemy's Fight the Power. That's in it, and just super loud. And even when he goes into every store, he does have that one little soliloquy where he has love and hate on his 4-finger rings, and he has talks about it like that. But what do you guys make of his character? Was he educated, not educated? Did he have a point? Unfortunately, he was the tragedy, killed by the police brutality at the end there. What's your take on Radio Raheem? I couldn't get a good read on him.
Yeah, that's a good question, because as many times as I've watched the movie, I've never really given that much thought. But I think that Radio Raheem was a polarizing character in the community because everybody knew who he was. And it was not necessarily because of what came out of his mouth, but it was because he always walked around with a radio. In this instance, he was playing Fight the Power, but he probably played other music as well on other days or other occasions. But I think that the fact that everybody knew who he was like a larger than life character in the neighborhood. They never really gave any information about any type of occupation or anything that he did. So we don't know whether he, worked or not, or what he did or what his likes and dislikes were other than the radio, which is kind of ironic. But I think that he did have some issues just based off of how he interacted with the Koreans when he needed to buy some batteries. There was some extreme rudeness, lack of better word, but he was very, very out of pocket with them. and I would have never talked to anyone like that. And, they're trying to help you, whether you like them or not. I mean, you're in their business trying to, purchase some batteries from them. Like, there's no need to belittle or berate anyone in the customer service industry. So anytime I see stuff like that, I cringe a little bit. So in that aspect, didn't really like him in that instance. The whole scene with him and Bugging Out confronting Sal, I don't really know if he necessarily agreed with Bugging Out, or if he was just there just to egg him on, or what his role was, because it was primarily Bugging Out's idea to go there to confront Sal, but he just kind of tagged along. Maybe he had those feelings all along. You don't really know. But unfortunately, it goes to show sometimes it's better to not follow blindly into a situation, because sometimes there's tragic results. And in this instance, he lost his life, unfortunately. But yeah, like I said, I've been trying to figure out. Can't really necessarily put a pinpoint on him. So I'm open to your feelings on it as well.
Yeah, I mean, for me, he was a little bit militant, actually, right? In my opinion. And when Bugging Out approached him, let's boycott Sal's, because again, he doesn't have the pictures of Black people on the wall. I think he was happy to join the cause. He was overtly, I guess, trying to impose his culture onto others with the music, and super disrespectful to the Korean, dropping the MFers and this and that. I don't know, maybe he was kind of a lost soul looking to latch onto something, and then Bugging Out gave him that. Right. So I think that's what got him there. Kind of like maybe he was a little bit wayward, blowing the window there. He latched on to what Bugging Out was talking about. He's the one that, in that confrontation, he pulled Sal over the counter and started attacking him, after obviously Sal destroyed his boombox, with multiple hits with the baseball bat. So, yeah, I mean, Spike Lee mentioned something in an interview too. It's like, there were a lot of people like that. This is how it was in Bed-Stuy. There were people walking around with boomboxes loud, and they were just listening to it. And it was frowned upon by a lot of these old school folks. So it was definitely a source of conflict. I mean, that's my take there. DynoWright, you have anything to add on Radio Raheem?
Yeah, so I think Radio Raheem is my least favorite part of the movie. I felt like there was not enough character development with him. Maybe that was the point. Maybe the point was there are these characters in any block, and that's the point of just a person with a boombox that just plays his music really loud. It's very literal and visceral that it's Fight the Power that's coming out of his boombox and confronting Sal, as if hip hop himself was loudly demanding to be heard. This is 1989. Still, hip hop is still young then. But aside from the love and hate soliloquy he has, like, we don't really know anything about Radio Raheem other than he's really big. He's got a giant boombox that's like proportional to his size, and he just goes around, walks around with his boombox all day. We don't know what he does. Like, we don't know his motivations. He's mean to the convenience store owners. Like, what was this all about? And then for him to die at the end is like the great tragedy at the end. I wasn't quite sure like what there is a message here in the entire movie, but we didn't know enough about Radio Raheem to care whether he died or not. I mean, we do care because because of the way he died, but like the person himself, what's the real part of the tragedy that he died?
Right.
So I was struggling with that. We didn't know enough about Radio Raheem, and maybe we're supposed to, but I felt, had this movie been maybe 15 minutes longer, we could have like really known the deeper tragedy of this.
But let me flash forward to just a couple years ago with George Floyd, right? To get a little bit deep here, it doesn't make it, just because Radio Raheem may have not been a super upstanding citizen, right? The life is still super valuable, right? I see a lot of people trying to nitpick George Floyd of his character, right? And I think that's totally wrong, right? Mm-hmm. Because then even if you give a tiny ounce of justification, there's no reason at all. George Floyd was he stealing cigarettes or something like that? It's like, he had a criminal record. Like that really irks me when people start digging into these victims of the police brutality. And so, I mean, how poignant was it that Spike Lee chose Radio Raheem, someone we don't really know about, and his life is no less valuable than anybody else. So, we shouldn't really be concerned about really Radio Raheem's past. It was a violent act that went way too far. They knew they were choking him with the nightstick, and it's a tragedy nonetheless.
The tragedy that I connected to is Eric Garner.
Yeah.
That was in New York, and that
chokehold,
Mm-hmm.
But like I think that was the point too. Like you said, that it showed him as a flawed person, throughout the movie. Even with his interaction with the Koreans and how he, just disregarded everyone and just blasted his music whether they wanted to hear it or not, to show that despite it all, he was still a person, and he deserved due process.
Yeah,
not to
he didn't
die,
deserve to die.
Right, not to die on the street by a chokehold.
Yeah. Nope.
I was going to say, ironically, the person who played the officer, Rick Aiello, Danny Aiello's son, in real life.
And one of his other sons was actually stunt double for him, I think, in the fight scene. Yeah, so a couple of Danny Aiello's sons were in it as well. Another debate topic is, what do you think of Sal's interaction with Jade, Boogie's sister? Did he really have a crush with her? Because he was obviously extra sweet speaking with her, totally out of his character. Do you think he literally had a crush on her, or was he just doing that to dig on Mookie? Or what was your take on that whole thing?
There's layers to that interaction. I think it might have been a bit of both of those. I think that he actually may have found Jade to be attractive, and he might have actually liked her. She was very pleasant, very respectful. She seemed like she had a sweet personality. She just seemed like she took care of Mookie, despite Mookie being older than her. And I think even when she interacted with Mookie, I think everyone kind of knew, Jade's, relationship with Mookie is the one that kind of kept him on track, because he was a little wayward, having a child that he rarely took care of, and had a somewhat rocky relationship with Tina, his girlfriend. So I think that Sal might have saw that and said, she seems like a real sweet person. I'm glad to have conversation with her because she is a nice Black girl, not like any of these other ones around here, So that might be part of it. And he might have also noticed that Mookie got irritated by their interactions and said, you know what? I noticed that he gets irritated by us. I'm going to jab at him. Then there's another layer that Spike probably intended to put in there as well, more subtle, is the fetishism. There's been instances throughout history of the fetishism of Black women, too numerous to even document. To even go over that, that just occurred throughout history, where Black women were subjugated to various degrees of sexual assault, etc. And I think that knowing Spike, he probably was playing a little bit on that angle as well, and saying, like, we know that this guy is racist, in any degree, he's racist. Here's a black woman here who's attractive, and let's kind of show how he, even though we know he doesn't like these people, if he had a shot with her, he'd take it. So I think that's kind of my take on that whole interaction between Sal and Jade. I think it was a dynamic of all those three things combined.
I like it. What do you think, DynoWright?
Yeah, I think Boogie got it right. Sal calls Mookie like a son to him. And so by extension, maybe Jade is like a daughter to him. But you can't ignore, like you said, Boogie, the fetishism that happens throughout history and these racial dynamics and these power dynamics too. So I think it's all in there. And at that point in the movie, Sal was still like not totally like off the rails. And so I think most of it came from a good place, but I think some of it did not come from a good place.
I think Spike's leaving it open for interpretation intentionally. I mean, I see Sal as a racist. I don't think he would pursue Jade in a physical way. However, I kind of think maybe subliminally he was taking a dig at Mookie. It's like, hey, like, I'm talking to your sister. And I know that really got Mookie's goat. And then I think that's kind of maybe what set him off. Because I was thinking in that final scene with the riot after Radio Raheem was killed, I was surprised that Mookie was the one that threw the trash can through the window. But again, I think maybe that was the straw that broke the camel's back for Mookie. It was like, all right, I'm putting up with this racial stuff. Black man was just killed because of this interaction here at Sal's. Sal's talking, everything just kind of boiled over.
Yeah.
And I think that may have been the final straw.
Yeah, that was definitely the straw that broke the back. Definitely. Because he didn't even say anything. He just walked over, didn't say a word.
Yeah.
Just boom. Everything just set off right there.
Yeah.
Do the Right Thing, Part 2. When we left off, we were debating some key questions that Spike Lee's classic 1989 film raised.
Final debate type question. This might seem a little outlandish, but do you think there's any possibility that Mookie could continue any form of relationship with Sal after all the events that occurred? And you saw how it ended. He came back for his money. Mookie came back for his money. He said, "You owe me his money. How much are you?" $250. Sal crumbles up the $100 bills, throws it at him nastily, shouting, "Oh, he's rich now," and cursing left and right. They have an exchange there. But do you think they could have any type of relationship after what happened? What do you think?
That's a tough one.
Yeah.
Because initially, off the top of my head, I'm like, no, it's a done deal. There's no going back. Yeah, I don't think that they could, even if Mookie went back to even apologize. Like, Sal is very rigid. Like, he's old school rigid. And like, he's like the type of person that will hold a grudge. I don't think that even if Mookie apologized, I don't think Sal would get over it. And even if he tried, you got the son, Pino, that would kind of just egg it to the point where, even if Sal even tried to consider it, it wouldn't happen. I think it's done.
Yeah. What do you think, DynoWright?
I was frankly surprised they even talked to each other at the end of the movie.
Right.
I wasn't expecting that. I thought, most people think the movie would have ended with the riot, but I forget who wrote this in a review. But the thing that Spike Lee does is to actually go through the rest of it and like doesn't just leave it there, because there is the next day. But I just don't think Mookie would stand for it. I don't think Sal would take him back either.
Yeah, I think it's just too tragic, and time for Mookie to move on and get a new job. Maybe if Sal get some money from insurance, as he implied, or maybe he's set to retire. He's getting up there in age, move off into the sunset, maybe move back to his neighborhood and start something over there. Where I think they were from Bensonhurst. Yeah, I don't think so. You never know. Maybe you fast forward down the years. Maybe Sal becomes ill in his final days. Maybe he reaches out to Mookie, or Mookie is like shows up for his funeral or something like that. I could see something like that, but I don't think they'd have any type of relationship.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. I mean, they worked together for over 2 years, but again, it's a hostile environment. It's not, it was kind of like it was a sort of a father-son relationship, super dysfunctional though.
Yeah.
Super dysfunctional. Other things that I want to point out, like, did you know there's a lot of like fun trivia here? Did you guys know that the movie was originally called Heat Wave?
Yeah.
It was called Heat Wave.
Yeah.
And like the character of Smiley was not originally in the script. Was it Roger Gwenber?
Yeah, Roger Gwenber.
Roger G. Smith.
Yeah.
Roger Smith, right? So I was watching and they were like, he would just show up at the set like every day. And he was kind of like saying, telling Spike, I want to be this character. He starts playing the role and he convinced him. And he was an integral part. I mean, he's the one that, for those listening, he was the one with a disability, and he was stuttering a lot, selling pictures of Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr. for a couple bucks. He kept bugging people to buy it. He got involved in the scene, the fight scene and the riot. He's the one that literally set the pizzeria on fire. He lit the match.
Yeah.
And then he ends up posting up the picture on the wall. So it kind of all came full circle. But it was interesting that he was not originally in the script and he became an integral part of the movie.
Yeah.
I also like that Spike Lee's actual sister, Rajwali, plays Jade. So that's his actual sister, and you can see the resemblance. I'm like,
Joy. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. She's had appearances in a few of his films.
Yeah. And even more of a family affair, Spike's father, Bill Lee, did the music, like the score for the movie. Yeah. And then you see a little, like, we talk about different actors. I mean, it's crazy that Samuel L. Jackson was just Sam Jackson at the time, and one of the earlier films, the DJ, he did a great job. And Richard Edson, who plays Vito, and I'm looking at him, I'm like, where do I know him from? He's been in a ton of stuff. He was in Platoon, he was in Good Morning Vietnam, the Starsky and Hutch movie remake. But what was funny to me is, and I'm like, oh yeah, he was the crazy valet driver from Ferris Bueller's Day Off that took Cameron's dad's car for a joyride. I'm like, that's him.
Yes.
That cutscene in that movie where they see the car like flying in the air still makes me laugh.
Oh man.
Classic scene right there. Yes.
And I dug more into Richard Edson. DynoWright, did you know he was the original drummer for Sonic Youth?
I didn't know that.
He was the original drummer for the band Sonic Youth, and he's very musically inclined. He's done a lot in the music industry, as well as
much as I listened to those records, I didn't even know it was him. Wow.
Yeah, it's funny. I don't know at what point, I don't know if he was there before they, went a little bit commercial or not, but he original drummer.
How about that?
Yeah. You guys have any other tidbits that you guys came across?
Yeah. So this is the first movie that we reviewed so far that I can tell that is on the National Film Registry. So very important. Somehow Breakin' 2 was not on the National Film Registry.
Just missed.
Missed it by that much.
It's an outrageous omission. I meant to look into why there was at least 2 Keith Sweat references. Maybe it's just the sweating part of it. Maybe that's because there was a poster of Keith Sweat in the radio station, and then maybe it was the cornermen talking about Keith Sweat, or someone was talking about Keith Sweat in this movie, and I thought, must have been about the heat.
Those the corner guys, man, just not to go off topic, but the corner guys, I just think about that. They just make me laugh right now. I'm like thinking about how many family cookouts that I've been to, and I've seen my father's cousins have similar debates in the cookout, and I'm like, wow, it's so so reminiscent of like some of those same conversations that I've heard. And I'm like, those guys used to have me cracking up. Hey, go grab me a cold one real quick. Send me over there to go to the cooler and come back with a cold when they finish talking.
It's funny because it's true.
Yeah.
You nailed it.
Yeah.
What I also saw was in one of these extra scenes, there's the one scene where Bugging Out gets his Air Jordans run over by the bicyclist.
Oh,
That
yeah.
has a Larry Bird jersey on,
Mhm.
right? So that's again the
Bird
black and
versus
white.
Jordan.
Right there, right? Bird versus Jordan, and the Celtics are one of the hated rivals of the Knicks. And he's like, "Man, I live here." You know, they're going back and forth, and the guy that played that bicyclist, he just lived on the block, and he just happened to be coming home, and he had a bicycle in his car, and it kind of worked. It did it in one take too. He just rode his bike over. You know, I guess they scuffed up the shoe.
Mhm.
And I was like, wow, that guy was like a natural. He even said something. There was, I guess, an urban myth that Larry Bird actually gave him that jersey. And Spike Lee was going back and forth on this 20-year reunion of the movie. He's like, no, I gave it from wardrobe. I gave you the jersey. And he goes, well, crazy enough, he's like, my sister dated Larry Bird or something like that. And so I thought that he gave it to me. I'm like, what? What is this? It was so coincidental.
Huh.
It was kind of wild that all happened. It all just kind of came together. And filming the scene, and there are a lot of extras, obviously, and they're all from right there in Bed-Stuy, which was a great boon for the community there. And I was watching. They actually threw a block party one day.
Yes.
They had a big party. They were giving out hats and shirts and doing the right thing. And all those stars, Spike Lee was there, and all the stars were there, and it was a really nice thing. And they had to be extra cautious. I mean, there was parts of the borough there that were, not safe. So I guess they had extra security. And what's crazy is there's so much tension in this movie, the racial tension. I saw the one part that Richard Edson, that played Vito, he said the Nation of Islam was like security for a good part of this. And he said, I was saying hello to these guys like every day. I couldn't get a hello. They were like so focused the entire time. Yeah.
Yeah, the FOI, the FOI, they're serious. Fruits of Islam.
Yeah.
Those guys, I've seen them in various instances as well. You won't get a smile out of them.
No.
They're like military, like almost focused.
Mhm.
Spike Lee hired a lot of Black folks for a lot of the different roles, different jobs around the film, catering. He even tried to get a lot of the union folks to make sure that there were a lot of Black folks working on the set and everything like that. And John Turturro said there was this one woman that was a caterer, and she kept refusing to like serve him even a glass of water because she kind of thought his character was like how he really was, and he had to really convince her that no, I'm playing a role here. So man,
he's that good of an actor. I mean, John Turturro is one of the best ever.
Yeah, he was very convincing in that role, but he's definitely not that person.
and Roger G. Smith said that the role of Smiley, there was a scene in the big fight, the fight scene that before Ray Rahim was killed. He actually spit on, and I think it must have been Danny Aiello's son that was stunt double. He actually spit on him, and he didn't know it was coming. And he goes, that caused a lot of mayhem. Like he was totally into the character, and he actually spit. You slow it down, you see he literally spit on the guy. And they were like, whoa, and he said that was real fighting that was starting to happen there. Spike Lee was like, oh yeah, I remember that. So yeah, there were some instances, obviously, when you have, and literally it was hot. I mean, they're filming in the middle of summer.
Yeah,
and you're in character. There's tensions. So
people are naturally aggravated when they're.
Yeah,
when they're hot and they get to the point where they're almost overheating.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I read that Spike Lee got the inspiration for this from watching a Twilight Zone episode about how the rising heat index or in the story caused more murders.
I saw that too.
Wave.
Yeah. The statistics prove that on the hotter days, murder rates go up.
Oh no, that's definitely that's definitely true. even like not to reference my old neighborhood, but like, you know, the wintertime, it's all nice and calm. I mean, even when it's freezing outside, you don't see many people. As soon as it gets hot, that's when everybody wants to fight or, you know, whatever. Yeah, summertime is always the worst time. It's so crucial sometimes to have activities and things for people to do because they're frustrated already from being hot.
Yeah.
You know, even like in the movie, they were cracking open the fire hydrant to cool off. You know, I've seen that in my cousin's neighborhood in Jersey City. They used to do it all the time. But here comes the police. You know, I mean, of course, they're doing what they're supposed to do. Their job is to make sure that they're not playing with the hydrant, so they shut it off. But you know, that was one thing that they were trying to do to keep cool, but couldn't do it.
Yeah. So overall, I mean, did you enjoy the music? Primarily, it was really a lot of Fight the Power over and over again. But any other music catch your ear?
I mean, like, I know the score itself has a lot of jazzy type undertones to them. So I always like how Spike scores with the jazzy undertones. So it's very soothing and relaxing.
There was a reggae song, something like "You Can't Stand the Heat," when they were showing, I think, Rosie putting her face in the water and cooling down.
There's something from Guy. There's something from
yes. The songs that play were good.
Yeah, there was good. There was good soundtrack. You know, they did bring in Branford Marsalis to do some of the music as well.
Yeah,
that's my man right there.
So, what were some of the things that you guys maybe disliked? I know that we kind of hinted on a few things. You know, DynoWright, you said something about like just Radio Raheem's character in general.
Yeah, but aside from that, this is something read about in some of the reviews that Rosie Perez was very uncomfortable doing that nude scene, and so she felt kind of exploitative. And other people have had the criticism that there aren't enough women in this story, even though Mother Sister's there and Jade is part of the story and Tina is part of the story. I think I see the point from a filmmaker's perspective, but that was something like, yeah, she says that they don't show her face in that one scene when she's naked because she's crying in that. I thought, is that really worth it then?
Right.
You don't need to have your actress doing this. You can do this other ways. I mean, not that Spike Lee has forgotten more about film than I'll ever know, but it just seems like that was a little unnecessary.
Yeah. Sometimes we can get a double.
Yeah.
Or even not even do it. I mean,
or not do it.
Right. Gratuitous.
Right.
I mean, like I said, I love the music. I almost wish they would have showed a little bit more of the depth of Public Enemy. I mean, Fight the Power was an amazing anthem. Maybe they could have put a track or two on Radio Raheem's box from like It Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back. Something like Bring the Noise, or, you know, one of those songs, or Countdown to Armageddon, or, you know, something like that. You know, just kind of give it a little bit more depth, because it got a little bit tiresome just to kind of hear that over and over again.
I mean, even they did play a few different like remix cuts and stuff, but still it's like same song. Like Radio Raheem at the single of Fight the Power. That was it.
Yeah.
I got one tape.
What?
For real.
That's all I got.
I didn't like the scene with Ahmed going off on the mayor, like just flat out cussing him out. You're a drunk, cursing, you know, and I'm like, I mean, and I know it happens, but again, I guess it's just people riled up with emotions. But yeah, it was uncomfortable for me to see. Along with Raheem, like you said, BooGie, with the way he spoke to the Korean convenience store folks.
Right. Yeah, I think like I hinted on this when we were talking pre-recording. Like, I think it's not even necessarily that I dislike, but I think that one thing about the movie is the language is very harsh, so it kind of limits the audience. You have to really go into it with an open mind, because if you don't, you know, some of the language might turn you off, and you might miss the message of what, you know, Spike was trying to convey. And like I said, it's not necessarily a dislike; it's more so an observation per se. But he definitely kept it raw.
Yeah, there was the one scene where they're just throwing out every racial epithet that could be derogatory towards blacks, towards Italians, coupled towards Koreans, towards Jews. It was just like throwing it all out there, and you're taken aback by it. And we discussed a little bit pre-recording too, where at first you're like, how do I react to that? It's just so mind-blowing. But again, Spike Lee has a way of like I said, it's kind of like the elephant in the room. People call it all these nasty things. People use it in the vernacular, unfortunately, and throw it out there on the table. You know, these are names. This is what you guys are saying. This is what you guys are saying. And then words have consequences, and they're hurtful, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yep. It kind of goes back to like, it was one of the things that we mentioned when we were talking about Star Wars. We talked about Star Wars. We were talking about how in the community, you know, you have a bit of everybody there, and they're all in the same environment. Everybody's kind of dealing with the same struggle, the same situation, and then compounded with the heat wave on top of it. But you're all there together. You're not going anywhere. There's no escaping to go out of it. So you're all there together. So you kind of have to figure out how to deal with one another, you know, in a sense, like it's a community. Like, can't put one against the other when you're all basically in the same situation. You're all there.
Mm-hmm. You all have to deal with the heat.
Exactly.
And each other.
Everybody needs some ice cubes.
Yeah.
I guess it's time now to wrap it up and do our regular rating. And I think this is no brainer here, but go around the room here. Bring that funky flick back.
Bring that funky flick back.
Or leave it in the vault. What do you say, Boogie?
Bring that funky flick back. Very poignant, very relevant. Easily can make this today. Same situations exist in that movie that are existing right now. So by all means, bring that funky flick back.
DynoWright?
Bring that funky flick back. It could have been made yesterday.
Yeah.
It's so relevant and fresh now as it was in 1989. Not all this is a good thing. We're still dealing with these racial tensions and all that.
Yeah, definitely bring that funky flick back. It's all-time classic. It's very thought-provoking. It's poignant, relevant, and again, I almost think it should be like required watching for a lot of folks.
Yeah,
because again, it brings these topics out to the table, deep-seated racism and the unfortunate consequences it can have.
Did you mention on recording that you had Ethan watch this with you?
Yeah. So my son did watch it with me. He's 17, and kind of the Boogie's point, it's like, unfortunately, like you got to wait till a certain age because to hear that language and to see some of that. But yeah, he thought it was an excellent movie, and we've been talking about it for a few days now since then, because I kind of just was, what do you think about this? We like kind of the debate topics we have, and we've been going back and forth. Like I'm asking him, do you think Sal was a racist? And he kind of wavered back and forth. And he's like, no, I don't think so. And I'm like, well, what about this? What about that? And I kind of make him think, yeah, you know what? He really was. Where does Pino get it from? You know, stuff like that. What, you know, we went through the different topics. So to the point where my wife's kind of tired of hearing about the movie. We're talking about this movie? I'm like, yes, we are, because it's awesome. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, Spike's a genius. He did an amazing job.
Yeah.
It's amazing. He was 32 when he made this film. This was his third film. When I was 32, I wasn't making anything important.
Yeah. He used a lot of the same cast from School Days, which he had done just prior. Ossie Davis was in that. A lot of other guys were in that as well.
Yeah, Giancarlo Esposito was Dean Big Brother Almighty, which is actually my name, and which is actually what Siri calls me on my phone.
Well, Spike said that they have to they filmed School Days, I think, down in Atlanta, much more laid back, filming it. And they said doing this in Bed-Stuy, they had to really be on point, on the guard, because you never know. There were some people that come on the set and they had to really vet them out. Like, are you really an extra? Stuff. Everybody wanted a piece of this. And then you don't know if it's a underbelly of undesirable element just trying to get in there or trying to get close to Spike Lee. And it's like, whoa, wait a second. They had to have some pretty tight security right there in Brooklyn.
Absolutely.
So
yeah.
it was amazing that they did it right there, right in the street. So some folks are complaining that some parks were closed and stuff like that.
Its budget was $6 million and it did $37.3 million. So quite profitable.
It did really well.
Yeah.
It blew the box office open when it dropped, and everybody was talking about it. Everybody.
Not many commercial films were this thought-provoking and this relevant and vital to the public discourse. So shout out to Spike Lee.
Yeah. And I think once once Public Enemy dropped the video Fight the Power, it really took off.
It really did. A really great video too.
Yeah.
It's super. Everything was revolutionary about it. You haven't seen that type of racism portrayed, and then the police brutality. Even the Public Enemy song, I mean, flat out declaring that Elvis and John Wayne were racists. Very controversial at the time. Again, thought-provoking. Yeah. I love the line, most of my heroes don't appear on no stamps. I mean, it wasn't.
Yeah.
I don't even know at what point in history first Black person appeared on a stamp, but it was way, way overdue. I mean, the fact that MLK Day didn't start until 1986.
Right, after heavy petitioning too.
As an observed holiday. And it's like, why did that take so long? There's so many things where Black culture is playing catch up. Juneteenth just finally becoming recognized holiday as well.
And it's literally existed since slavery was abolished.
Right.
And it just really got recognized as a national holiday. Yeah. Even the whole premise about why it was celebrated is like, wow. But yeah, you're right. Definitely playing catch up.
I just read that Spike Lee directed the videos for Fight the Power. I don't know if I knew that.
Mm-hmm.
And Jermaine Dupri was in it.
Yeah.
I now have to go back and look and find him.
Yeah, it's a great video though. Great video. I think for many years though, I know they used to do the top hip hop songs of all time. Mm-hmm. And Fight the Power for a while had a stretch where they would come in at number one, the number one hip hop song of all time, just because of the relevancy of the song and what it stood for at the time. It was just so impactful to the culture, and they would always come in at number one. I forgot who used to do the countdown. I don't remember if it was MTV or VH1, but one of them used to do the countdown, and they would always come in at number one. It's not for making you want to get up and really dance. It's just kind of like, wow.
No, you don't want to dance. You want to march.
It's not a party.
Take to the streets. It's not like Can't Do Nothing For You, man. Hip Hop Movie Club is produced by your HHMCs, JB, BooGie, and DynoWright. Theme music by BooGie. Check us out on Instagram at Hip Hop Movie Club. Shout out to you listeners, and special shout out to our paisan, Ray Freshing. Thanks for your support and that sweet 5-star review. Thanks for tuning in.
Remember, don't hate, liberate.